Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, another KO for MK, the disruptive new political party making waves ahead of next month's presidential election in South Africa, gets the green light to keep its name and logo. Also, flooding hits many parts of Kenya, sweeping away vehicles, submerging key highways and sending communities scrambling to find higher ground. Burundi is also struggling with deluges that have hit East Africa since last year and are undoubtedly triggered by climate change. And after a key meet in Kenya, the nation known for its marathon and long-distance running is hoping to shine in the sprint for the rest of the year and has its eye on the prize ahead of the Paris Olympics. But first, a High Court judge has dismissed the case brought by South Africa's ruling ANC party, accusing the MK party of copyright infringement. MK's full name, Umkhonto Wesizwe, was originally used in the 60s by a now disbanded wing of the ANC. MK's logo is also similar to historical emblems used by the party, and the tensions between the two has been fanned by the defection of former president and old guard of the ANC, Jacob Zuma. He's standing as a candidate for MK in next month's elections in a move likely to further erode support for the ANC. Our Anne Wenzel tells us more.
With the dismissal of the ANC's application, former SA President Jacob Zuma's new party is free to move towards the national elections without having to change their name or logo. Zuma himself was not present at the court to share in the victory, but his daughter Duduzile was. She told media that the ANC was on a mission against her father but would not succeed.
They're after him for so many years, and here we are just showing them that they can't stop him. Yes. We're unstoppable.
Yes. The MK party is on a roll. It survived the ANC's attempt to force its deregistration. It's won an appeal to keep Zuma on the electoral nomination list, and now it gets to keep its name and logo. But the ANC says it's not done with its newest political rival.
He has a right to stand, to support whatever party, but such party must not use our symbol, our heritage. We have a duty to defend who we are. MK is what we are. It's an arm wing that we use to liberate our people.
Despite the ruling party's defiant dismissal for Zuma's new camp, the MK party has managed to dodge any significant obstacles to its progress since it emerged on the political landscape last September. The ANC is doing anything in its power to stop that streak from carrying through to the May 29th polls.
Burundi is struggling to cope with the deadly floods that are wreaking havoc across East Africa. The country's called for international help in responding to the torrential rains that have caused the waters of Lake Tanganyika to flood key parts of the economically crucial city of Bujumbura. Since September, heavy rains have damaged houses, schools and infrastructure and forced about 98,000 people from their homes. Disaster management experts have squarely blamed the extreme weather on climate change. Some Burundians say that they have never seen flooding like it. Meanwhile, Kenya has also been hit, with most of the country experiencing flooding. In Nairobi, tens of thousands of people have been displaced after rivers broke their banks on Sunday night. Olivia Bizot with more.
This time last year, most of East Africa was suffering from one of the most extreme droughts on record, which left millions of people on the brink of starvation. Now that's very hard to imagine now, as most of the region has gone from extreme drought to extreme deluge. Nairobi, where I'm currently based, has experienced torrential rain in the past few days, which has left a trail of destruction and suffering. When I woke up on Sunday morning, I saw that many rivers had overflown, and I also saw a lot of trees that had been completely uprooted, and many of those trees fell on electricity lines, which caused blackouts in many parts of the city. I also spoke to dozens of people who've been displaced from their homes and whose belongings have been completely destroyed because of the floods. They're not alone. About 80,000 people across Kenya have been displaced, and about 40 people have been killed in the floods. Other countries in the region have also been affected, including Tanzania, where about 60 people have been killed. Now, what's concerning is that Kenya's meteorological department has warned that this is just the beginning. Kenya's rainy season began about 3 weeks ago and is expected to continue for the next couple of months.
Togolese opposition members are calling for protests over the failure of lawmakers to publicly release the exact text of constitutional changes they unanimously approved on Friday that could extend the 19-year rule of President Faure Nsingbe. The amendments shift election of the president to parliament and away from the popular vote. New MPs will be voted in during elections on the 29th. Sophie Lamotte has more.
Dressed in red and black, dozens of civil society members gathered in protest of Togo's amendment to the constitution. They see it as a way for the current president Faure Nsingbe to extend his mandate.
Modifying the constitution to remain in power, this is unacceptable. We argue that we must restore constitutional order, bring this mandate to an end, and in 2025 organise a presidential election to restore once and for all a peaceful and democratic political changeover of the head of state in the country.
The new constitution shifts the political system from a presidential one to a parliamentary one. The president will no longer be elected by the people, but rather by members of parliament. Despite Friday's controversial vote and the weather, crowds gathered to support the ruling party.
I have always voted for the Union for the Republic Party, and this time I will vote for them again. They represent peace and stability, and no development is possible without peace.
A week ahead of the legislative elections, the campaign is in full swing. The president of the Council of Ministers, a position that will concentrate all powers, will emerge from the party that comes out on top in these elections.
We know that the parliamentary system is not undemocratic. Why not experiment with it? We know all its advantages, and we believe that with the participation of all citizens at all levels, tomorrow's Togo will be better than the one we have today.
The last time the constitution was amended was in 2019. Back then, it allowed Faure Nsingbe to run for 2 additional mandates until 2030.
At a security summit in Abuja, Nigeria, African leaders have called for a more regional cooperation approach in tackling terror on the continent as the epicenter of the threat shifts to the Sahel. It currently accounts for half of the deaths caused by terrorism globally. Groups linked to Islamic State and Al-Qaeda have been ramping up attacks in Africa, and the African Union's warned that last year daily incidents of extremist violence on the continent rose to 8, with 44 deaths daily, up from 4 and 18 deaths between 2017 and 2021. Meanwhile, the United States is talking to Niger about how best to pull out more than 1,000 American personnel in the country. It's been a key base for regional counter-terrorism operations, but earlier this year, Niamey called time on military cooperation with Washington. Al Jihad has more.
Sunday was the second demonstration against American military presence in Niger. The first one was in the capital, Niamey, which some military junta members attended. USA's agreed on Saturday to the Niger's demand that they move their troops out from the country, a huge political loss for the Biden administration, as the American military base in Agadez cost more than $120 million. Washington's also invested $100 million in a strategic cooperation with Niger forces, in training sessions with those forces, and in military equipment to fight terrorism in Sahel region.
We, the people of Agadez and Niger as a whole, we're not convinced that foreign military bases in our country can ensure our security. This is a new form of colonialism that we can't accept. We're rebuilding our country.
French soldiers were thrown out by Niger's military junta whilst American diplomacy tried to find an agreement to keep their troops on the ground. But today 1,100 American soldiers are set to leave Niger, even if several Nigerian security experts and some of the population fear that their exit will do little to support the country's battle against armed extremists. Just last week, at least 6 Nigerian soldiers were killed in a terrorist attack in the west part of the country.
And finally, African sprinters with their eyes on the Paris Olympics had a chance to limber up over the weekend at the Kip Keino Classic meet in Nairobi. Although the continent's fastest contender looked to have taken it easy at the race, he is still planning on taking on the rest of the year with a bang. Sophie Lamott has more.
A sense of disappointment overwhelms the Nairobi City Stadium. Africa's fastest man, Ferdinand Omanyala, finished 5th in Kenya's International Athletics meet on the weekend of the 20th of April. But the 2022 African and Commonwealth champion isn't worried. He's slowly picking up momentum as he builds towards this summer's Olympics in Paris.
What I can tell the fans is that we're approaching this season differently. I don't want to peak too early. I don't want to peak in March and then go down before August. So that's the plan that we have. So now we're just going to make sure that we correct everything as we go on.
At the 2021 Olympic Games in Tokyo, Kenya won 10 of the 37 African medals, mainly thanks to its performances in long-distance meets. That year, Omanyala made history by qualifying for the 100-metre Olympic semi-final.
Of course, the short distance races are really dominated by the Jamaicans and the Americans, and also some of the guys in the UK, and perhaps even Nigeria as well in some sense. But I think that it's had a very good season. There's been a lot of build-up to the event and a lot of preparations going to it. And I trust that we're going to see a very, very solid performance this time around.
In the land of long-distance runners, Omanyala is on a mission to popularise sprinting, and the Athletics Federation is training a whole new generation of sprinters.
There is going to be relying on the traditional medium and long distance races, but there will definitely be expectations for Kenyans to sort of, win a medal in the sprints or possibly get to the final.
And this year, athletes could have yet another incentive to win gold in Paris. For the first time, the World Athletics Federation will give a €50,000 reward to its Olympic champions.
So much to look forward to. That, though, is all we have time for Eye on Africa. Thanks for joining us, and do so again if you can. Till then, take care.
We live next door to each other. I forgive, but my heart does not.
People run into each other in town in Vukovar. Raped women run into their rapists, and we run into the people who beat us in the Serb camps.
In 1991, Vukovar was torn apart during the war in the Balkans, with Croats on one side and Serbs on the other. But 30 years on, how do those who fought each other now live together?
We're headed for better times.
Yes, we hope so.
We're looking towards the future. We aim for normalization, for a more rational way of seeing things.
While some look to the future, others refuse to forget.
So what if some people say we have to forgive and forget? No, we don't. We have to know who the perpetrators were, so that future generations don't make the same mistake.
Watch Vukovar, Hidden Scars on France 24 and France24.com.